Ghostbusters Afterlife is Sony Pictures' newest attempt to keep the Ghostbusters brand alive, but is this movie an improvement on its 2016 predecessor? Well, let's find out. If you were on the internet in March of 2016, you may remember the absolute cataclysmic shitstorm that shortly followed the release of a trailer for the new Ghostbusters. A reboot, in fact, which featured an all-female team of Ghostbusters, and at the time of its release, and may still be true, it actually broke the record for the most disliked movie trailer in YouTube's history. And you can still go on that video right now and still see men or people, but men, still commenting and still so upset with that movie. Well, now, 5 years later, mind you, Sony has decided to take another crack at the Ghostbusters franchise, and to do so, they have hired Jason Reitman to direct and co-write this film. And for those of you who don't know, Jason is the son of Ivan Reitman, who was the director of the original 1984 film. So there appears to be a passing of the proverbial torch here. You have the older generation handing the baton to this newer generation, not only in regards to behind the camera, but in front of it as well. Because this film takes place over 35 years after the events of the original film and follows the descendant of one of the original Ghostbusters, who, after inheriting their home, uncover the mysterious past of their grandfather. Now, after the release of that 2016 film, to me, someone who isn't a die-hard Ghostbusters fan, I really had no idea how fervent and pretty territorial over this series that these fans were. So the fact that this movie does take a bit, and I emphasize a bit, of a different approach to a Ghostbusters movie kind of worried me a bit, because I know you guys don't really like it when a Ghostbusters movie does different stuff. And those different aspects I'm talking about are primarily in regards to its setting. This movie doesn't take place in New York City like the other films in the franchise, and also it mostly features young kids as these Ghostbusters, some of whom are taking up the mantle from their grandparents, as I mentioned. And I think if you are going to reboot Ghostbusters, but keep the original film in continuity, this is the way to do it. Maintain that sense of legacy and pass that on to a newer generation. And it's also great that this new cast that makes up the Ghostbusters, if this does end up being what we get as the final roster of sorts, it's really diverse, which is excellent. Unfortunately, though, I really do wish that this new squad were all well-defined and had distinct character traits. Now, I think something that is really fun about the original Ghostbusters is how each character is so distinct and has those clear personalities. And although there are some characters in this who do have those clear personalities, some of the others aren't as lucky. One of the characters that I do think really shines here is Phoebe, who is portrayed by McKenna Grace, who is hands down the best part of this movie. She continues to be so talented and really stands tall as one of the best young actors working today. She's funny and endearing, and out of everyone in this movie, she was the one that I wanted to see more of. Unfortunately, though, the reality of Ghostbusters Afterlife is her character is really the only thoroughly well-defined thing in this movie. Because instead of developing these new characters and at least trying to get fans excited to likely spend more time with them, this movie really does get bogged down with looking back on the past of this franchise and reminding fans of how cool Ghostbusters is. This movie has a ton of references and cameos and callbacks and Easter eggs and all those things that I'm sure fans of the series are going to pick up on and be excited to see again. But at what cost? Because when you have these components and they're merely just kind of dangled in front of fans as something to sort of resurrect that sense of nostalgia, it really rings hollow for me. There seems to be a lot of elbowing fans in the side, being like, there's the thing you like. Are you excited to see the character doing the thing that you like doing in the original movie? And considering a lot of this movie just sort of remixes plot points from the original film, it all just starts to feel super heavy-handed. For example, and I guess this is a very mild spoiler, but trust me, this will not ruin the movie at all for you. But in this film, some of the characters run into trouble with local law enforcement and are very briefly put into jail. And when one of the characters asks the police officer, "Hey, don't we get a phone call?" you'll never guess what the sheriff says back to them. Yeah, with a straight face, they say, "Who you gonna call?" And that's just one example, and I will say it's a pretty bad one, but this movie is honestly full of moments like that, which ultimately just really drags down the final product of this movie, and what could have been this passing of the torch to a new generation, while also paying respects and honoring what came before, is instead this pretty embarrassing parade of Easter eggs and references and cameos. I think the intentions here are good, especially considering who is behind this movie, but I just really wished they showed a bit more restraint, because there is some good stuff in this movie. There's some fun to be had, but I just wish it had a bit more to it, a little bit more depth to it, and gave fans a bit more to be excited about other than just kind of playing the old hits. So did you guys see Ghostbusters Afterlife? What did you think about it? Where does it rank in regards to the other Ghostbusters films for you? I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions down below. And as always, guys, thank you so much for watching today. I hope you liked today's video, and if you did, you can click the link down below and subscribe to my channel to see more movie reviews and movie related things. Again, guys, thank you so much for watching, and see you next time.